When people ask why I left my husband, I don't say he cheated or we fought too much. I say very calmly, he turned my pain into entertainment for his mother. And most people think I'm exaggerating. I wish I were. My name is Rachel, I'm 32, and I used to believe that love could fix anything, as long as both people tried. So when my marriage started to crack, I did what fixers do. I booked therapy. My husband Mark agreed, reluctantly. He always said, "We're fine, Rach. We just need a weekend away." But he came anyway, sitting on the very edge of the couch, arms folded, the way people do when they've already decided they're not the problem. Our therapist, Dr. Harris, had warm eyes and too many pillows in her office. She started with the simple questions. How long had we been married? What did we love about each other? What brought us here? I went first because I always do. I talked about the distance, about how we turned into polite roommates. I talked about Mark's late nights at the office and the way his phone never left his hand. I talked about feeling like I was knocking on a door that used to open easily, and now someone was holding it from the inside. Mark said I was overly sensitive. He said I misinterpreted things. He said work was stressful, life was stressful, and I needed to stop digging for issues. Dr. Harris listened. She nodded. She asked Mark what he needed. He shrugged. For Rachel to chill out, honestly. I laughed, a little broken sound. It was going to be a long process. But I believed in processes. I believed that if you laid the truth out gently enough, people would choose it. I didn't know that someone else was listening. Someone who had not been invited into that room. You have to understand Mark's mother, Elaine, to understand the rest of this story. Elaine is the kind of woman who calls 3 times during dinner just to check in. The kind who refers to her adult son as my baby and introduces me as his wife, Rachel, like my whole identity is a footnote on his page. When we got married, she gave me a framed photo of Mark at age 5, curled up on her lap. "Just so you never forget who had him first," she joked. But her eyes didn't joke. She had opinions about everything. How we folded towels, which holidays we spent where, and we should start trying for baby. And Mark treated her like a second conscience. If Elaine disapproved, it was suddenly a big deal. If Elaine approved, it was gospel. I used to tell myself it was sweet. A man who loves his mom. How wholesome. Then, I learned the difference between loving your mother and worshiping her. After 3 therapy sessions, something strange started happening. Elaine would call me and say things like, "So, I heard you're feeling unsupported lately," emphasizing the word exactly the way I'd said it in Dr. Harris's office. Or, "Maybe if you didn't nag Mark so much about his phone, you'd feel less insecure." I'd freeze. I'd never told her that. I hadn't told anyone that except Dr. Harris and Mark. The first time I thought it was coincidence. The second time, it felt like a bad dream. The third time when she quoted almost word for word something I'd said while sitting on the couch, "I feel like I'm shouting underwater." I felt my stomach drop through the floor. "How do you know that?" I asked. "Oh, honey," her tone turned sugary, fake sympathetic. "Mark tells me things. He needs someone to talk to. Marriage is hard, you know. I'm just trying to help." I hung up and waited for Mark to come home, my hands shaking. He walked in, tossed his keys in the bowl, kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. "Why is my mother quoting our therapy sessions?" I asked. He blinked. Then too quickly, "She isn't. She used my exact words, Mark. I might have mentioned some stuff I needed advice. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal?" My voice went high. "I tell you things in confidence in therapy, and you go run to your mom with it?" He rolled his eyes. "Relax. It's not like I gave her a transcript." But that was the moment my brain woke up. Not like I gave her a transcript. Normal people don't use that word. The next week at therapy, I couldn't focus on anything Dr. Harris said. I kept glancing at Mark's phone on the armrest at the little camera lens above the screen. Rachel? Dr. Harris asked gently. You seem distracted. I looked at Mark. He was smiling at her politely, like the golden boy he always was in public. Can I ask something? I said slowly. Is it possible for someone to record a session without you knowing? Her brows drew together. Legally? No. Ethically? Absolutely not. Why? I stared at his phone, at the case with a tiny slit near the top where a microphone could easily sit. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it. No reason, I lied. But that night, after Mark fell asleep, I checked his phone. Not his messages, not his social media. I went straight to his cloud storage, the one he thought I didn't know about because he used it to back up work files. I searched for Harris. Nothing. I searched for session and found a folder. RH sessions for mom. For a few seconds, I couldn't open it. My hands were sweating too much. The phone nearly slipped. When I finally tapped it, little audio files popped up like roaches. When a light turns on session1_audio.m4, a session2_audio.m4, a session3_audio.m4a, each with a date stamp. Each exactly 1 hour long. My vision blurred. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen, listening to my own voice echo in that tiny speaker, crying, explaining, confessing. Mark had propped his phone up on the armrest every week, answering emails before we began. He'd told Dr. Harris he needed it nearby in case of a work emergency. She'd nodded, trusting him. I'd trusted him, and the entire time he'd been recording, sending it to his mother like some twisted podcast. There's a special kind of humiliation that comes from realizing your rawest moments have been passed around like gossip. I almost woke him up right then, almost smashed the phone against the wall. Instead, I put it back exactly where it had been. Because suddenly a different part of my brain was speaking, the part that had watched Elaine talk about me like I was a project. The part that had listened to Mark dismiss my feelings as overreactions. The part that had spent 3 years apologizing for needing the bare minimum, that part said very clearly, don't explode. Document. So I did. The next morning, while Mark showered, I downloaded the entire folder and sent it to an email address he didn't know I had. Then I took screenshots of the file names, the For Mom label, the date stamps when he came out, towel around his waist, steam curling after him. I smiled like nothing was wrong. Hey, I said. Dr. Harris asked us to bring journals next session to write how we feel during the week. Should we get coffee after work and do it together? He looked relieved. Maybe he thought the storm had passed. Sure, he said. That actually sounds nice. I wrote in that journal, pages and pages. Not about my feelings, but about every detail I'd discovered I wrote, as if one day a stranger might need to read it and understand the whole story. Because I had a plan forming, and it needed an audience. 2 nights later, Elaine invited us to dinner. Well, she told me on the phone, we've all been so tense lately. Let's have a nice family evening. No drama. No drama. Right. Of course, I said sweetly. I'll bring dessert. I also brought something else. Before we left, I slipped a tiny flash drive into my pocket. It contained 3 audio files, labeled simply Session 1, Session 2, Session 3. But these weren't the originals. They were edited. Not by changing words. That would have been too easy. I simply removed Mark's voice. Every time he dismissed me. Every time he minimized. Deflected. Joked. Every time Dr. Harris asked him a question, and he gave some empty, charming answer. Cut. What remained was me, my voice, my pain, the quiet questions from Dr. Harris, and the sound of long, echoing silences from that the place. For the place where a husband should have been, Elaine's house smelled like lemon cleanser and control. She hugged Mark first, of course, then gave me a perfunctory pat. You look tired, she said. Therapy too heavy for you? I smiled. Something like that. We ate roast chicken at the long dining table Mark had grown up at, the one where, according to Elaine, real conversations happened. She asked about his work, his promotion, his boss. She asked me nothing. Halfway the way through dinner, she dabbed her mouth with a cloth napkin and aimed a little pitying look at me. So, Rachel, she said, how are your feelings? Mark snorted softly like that was some private joke between them. I set my fork down. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out calm. Actually, Elaine, I'm glad you asked. I brought you something. Both of them blinked. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket and set it on the table between the salt and pepper. What's that? Mark asked. A gift, I said. Since you like listening to our therapy sessions so much, I thought you deserved a clearer version. He went pale. Elaine's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I leaned back in my chair. You recorded every session, Mark. You labeled the folder for Mom. I found it, I made copies. I edited out everything except my side and the therapist's questions, so it's easier for you to enjoy. Elaine almost knocked over her wine glass. That's ridiculous. Mark would never... Should we play one? I asked pleasantly. I brought a speaker. I took out the small Bluetooth speaker from my bag and placed it gently next to the flash drive. The room went very, very quiet. Mark's jaw clenched. Rachel, don't be dramatic. Dramatic would be uploading them to a podcast, I said. This is just sharing, right? The way you share with your mother. Elaine looked at him. Mark? He didn't answer, so I did what I'd promised. I pressed play. The living room filled with my voice, raw, breaking, unguarded. I feel like I'm shouting underwater and nobody hears me. I'm not even sure why I'm still trying some days. Dr. Harris's gentle tone followed. What do you need from Mark that you're not getting? Silence on the recording at least. In Elaine's dining room, there was the clink of her fork dropping onto her plate. Then, my voice again. I need him to stop running to his mother every time we fight. I need him to see me as his partner, not another child you two are raising. The real Mark pushed his chair back one time. Off. I let it play on Dr. Harris's voice again. Why, Mark, what do you think when Rachel says that? Why, more silence. Wound 10 full seconds of it, I had left that in. Then, click, the sound of the recording stopping. Because that's where Mark must have hit pause that day in his pocket when he realized he'd be on tape too. I lowered the volume and looked at Elaine. That's just the beginning, I said quietly. There's plenty more. Enough for you to hear exactly what your son thinks of our marriage when he's not editing the story for you. She stared at Mark as if she'd never really seen him. You recorded her without telling her, she whispered. He threw his hands up. You told me to. You're the one who said a man shouldn't go into therapy unprotected, that women twist words, that I needed proof of what she says. I did not tell you to spy on your wife, Elaine snapped, color rising in her face. For once, I stayed silent. I let them see each other. I went to therapy because I believe we could fix this, I said finally, my voice low. I told you things I've never told anyone, Mark. I talked about my childhood, my fears, my miscarriages, and you sat there recording me like it was some show for your mom? Elaine's head jerked. Miscarriages? I closed my eyes briefly. Yes. He hadn't even told her that part. Of course he didn't mention that, I said. That would make him look like the husband who wasn't there for any of them. Too busy answering emails. Mark slammed his hand on the table. I was trying my best. Your best? My calm cracked. Your best was turning my therapy into entertainment. Tears burned my eyes, but I let them fall. Let them see, let them hear. I made copies, I said, quieter now. Several. One is with Dr. Harris, one with a lawyer, one in a cloud you will never find. If you try to deny it, if you try to spin this, remember, your own voice is on the originals, Mark, telling your mother exactly when to listen. Elaine had gone very still. Her grip on the napkin was white-knuckled. Mark, she said slowly, you sent them to me? He swallowed. You said you wanted to understand. You said Rachel was manipulative, that I needed to protect myself. You asked me what she said, and there's Tate. And I meant summaries, she burst out. Not recordings. She turned to me, something like shame flickering in her eyes. Rachel, I didn't know. Her voice shook. I am so sorry. For the first time since I'd met her, Elaine looked uncertain. Old. Human. I nodded once. I believe you didn't ask for recordings, but you enjoyed the information. You used it, throwing my words back at me on the phone. That's not curiosity, Elaine. That's control. She flinched. Mark looked between us, panicked. Can everyone stop attacking me like I'm some criminal? It's not illegal to record in this state if one person consents, and I consented. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, you're right, Mark. You might have the law on your side, but you don't have me. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small envelope. I slid it across the table toward him. What's this? He asked. Papers, I said. The kind you get when your wife realizes she was never really your partner. Just content. He stared. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. He knew. Elaine inhaled sharply. Divorce? Yes, I said simply. I already spoke to a lawyer. I'm not here to negotiate or threaten. I'm here to make sure we all hear the truth at the same time. This, I tapped the flash drive, is proof of violation, of betrayal, of you choosing your mother over your marriage every single time. Mark pushed his chair back so hard it screeched. You're overreacting. You always do. No judge is going to care about some recordings. I don't need a judge to care, I said. I needed me to care, and I finally do. Elaine closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. You're right, she said quietly. To me, not to him. You're right about everything. I thought I was protecting my son. I was helping him destroy his wife instead. She looked at Mark, and for once there was no softness in her gaze. You betrayed her, and you betrayed me too. You used me as an excuse. He gaped at her. Mom, no, she snapped. Don't mom me. You crossed a line I didn't even know existed. If your father were here, he'd be ashamed. The room felt like it tilted. Mark sank back into his chair, suddenly smaller. I stood. My legs felt strangely steady. I'll move out by the end of next month, I said. We'll handle the details through the lawyers. I'm not going to smear you online. I'm not going to ruin your job. I don't need to. You'll have to live with what you did, knowing that the first time your wife begged for help, you hit record instead. I picked up the flash drive and the speaker left the envelope behind. At the doorway, I paused. Oh, and Elaine, I said over my shoulder, if you ever go to therapy with Mark, check that his phone is really off. You'd think that would be the end of it. But people like Mark don't give up control easily. Over the following weeks, he wavered between begging and blaming. One night, he showed up at the apartment I'd rented, a tiny place with peeling paint, but blessed, sacred privacy. He stood in the hallway holding flowers like a cliché. "Rach," he said, eyes shiny, "we can fix this. I'll delete everything. I'll fire my therapist. You can pick a new one. I'll cut Mom off. Whatever you want." "You didn't just cross a boundary," I said gently. "You burned it, danced on the ashes, and mailed them to your mother. I'm not coming back from that." He gritted his teeth. "So you're really going to throw away 5 years of marriage?" "You threw it away when you pressed record," I replied. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Do you know how crazy you sound? People tell their moms things all the time. People don't secretly record therapy." I cut in. "You keep trying to resize what you did until it fits in your hand. It doesn't." I closed the door softly. I locked it. And for the first time in months, like, I slept without grinding my teeth. Divorce is not like the movies. No dramatic slamming gavels, no gasps from the audience, just paperwork and signatures and an official-looking person saying, "You are now single." We split our assets. He kept the house, I kept my sanity. My lawyer wanted me to push harder, to use the recordings as leverage, to bleed Mark financially as punishment. But revenge, I was learning, isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about exposure. As part of the settlement, we agreed he would attend a professional ethics workshop recommended by the court because, yes, my lawyer did sneak those recordings into the file, and apparently judges don't love the idea of spouses turning therapy into a spy mission. Elaine called me once, months later. "I started therapy," she said, "real therapy, on my own, without Mark. My therapist says I have control issues." She laughed bitterly. "Can you imagine?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I can." "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she added. "I know I don't deserve that. I just needed to say I'm sorry as myself, not as Mark's mother." I believed her, maybe because we were the first time she didn't say his name in every sentence. People love neat endings. They want to know if Mark changed, if Elaine redeemed herself, if I found someone new who truly listens. The truth is messier. Mark's life went on. He changed jobs a year later, moved to another city. I heard from a mutual friend that he tells people I was too dramatic about a few recordings. Maybe one day he'll tell someone the real version. Maybe not. Elaine and I text twice a year now, on my birthday and on hers. She's learning to live without knowing every detail of her son's life. It's hard on her, but she's trying. As for me, I kept going to therapy, alone. The first time I sat on Dr. Harris's couch without Mark, I couldn't stop scanning the room for hidden phones she noticed. "You're safe here," she said softly. "No one is recording you." "I know," I said, "but I also know that I ignored my instincts for a long time. I knew something felt wrong, and I pushed it down because I loved him." She nodded. "That is very human." We worked on that, on learning to trust my own unease, my own voice, on understanding that loving someone and letting them hurt you in slow motion are not the same thing. One day, months later, Dr. Harris asked, "If you could say one last thing to Mark, what would it be?" I thought about it, about all the speeches I'd practiced in the shower, all the clever comebacks and courtroom fantasies. In the end, I said, "Thank you." She tilted her head. "For what?" "For proving, early enough, who he really was," I answered. "Before children, before another decade, before I built my whole life on someone who thought my pain was content." I walked out of that feeling lighter than pusar para the I had in years. If you're listening to this and something in your gut feels wrong, if the person who promised to protect you keeps choosing an audience over you, if you feel like your rawest moments are being consumed instead of cherished, please hear me. You are not too sensitive. You are not overreacting. You are noticing the truth. Love without respect is just surveillance with pretty lighting, and you deserve more than that. My name is Rachel. My husband secretly recorded our therapy sessions and sent them to his mother. He thought he was building a case against me. Instead, he handed me the clearest evidence of who he really was. And that's how I finally walked away. If you stayed with me till the end of this story, thank you. If it reminded you of something in your own life, please don't ignore that feeling. On Aliza Revenge Stories, we share real emotional stories of betrayal, justice, and healing. If you want more stories like this, please subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. This is Aliza Revenge Stories, and remember, sometimes the greatest revenge is choosing yourself.